Hey, this is a review for install of a ESKY multifunctional camera and the ESKY 7-inch LCD monitor, and I'll be going over the installation of these two products in a 2010 F150. Now, what I'm going to do here is really just, it's a video of the pictures for install of the camera. So here's the type of vehicle that I installed it on. And the general method here was I used the driver's side rear reverse light, took that off to tap the power, ran the lines up under the bed and up into the rear seat of the cab area, the rear driver's side. And then I just ran the wire bundle under the floor mat and, up into the driver's compartment. So the first thing, of course, is to remove the tail light. So there's a couple things with removing the tail light. First, there are two screws on the inside of the tailgate that you have to take out. It was an 8mm socket, and it doesn't really come off easy, so it kind of makes you feel like you might be breaking a tab, but there really aren't tabs. They're really just these guide holes, guide whatever nubs here and here, and they really just pull out. They fit into, like this one fits into a little rubber grommet, so you just kind of have to pull back, and then the whole thing will come out. So pull back, the rear, toward the rear of the truck. So once you have that out, then the next thing to do is to find the reverse light, which of course that's the white one in the middle, and then you want to tap into the gray wire, which is the positive wire, where you'll get 12 volts. So once I did that, which well, let me get back. I'll show you that, how I did that. So I found the positive voltage, and then I tried to figure out where am I going to mount the camera. So my first option was to mount it on the top of the license tag. Well, you see the problem with that. I'm going to get pulled over, right? Because I'm partially obstructing my year and month stickers. So that just wasn't going to work. Ultimately, what I ended up doing was, cutting the tabs off, and I'll show you that at the very end. So I thought, well, maybe instead of mounting it toward the top of the license tag, I'll mount it toward the bottom. So I kind of held it in place there, but here's the problem. I mount it there, and all I get is really just a view of, half the picture is this is the bottom of the rear bumper here. So that clearly wasn't going to work either. So I had to end up, cutting the tabs off the camera to mount it at the top. So anyway, so back to the power. So I stripped, very carefully. I didn't cut the positive wire to the rear tail light. I just stripped the insulation. So, you just take a wire cutter and you clamp down here, you clamp down there, and then you take a utility knife and slice down the insulation. Then it just peels off like an orange. So I peeled that off and I soldered a wire into that. And, and you can see here back on this picture, you can see the wire harness that I pulled off. And then I just put that back on and wrapped the existing tape around, then put a little extra tape on to seal it up. And then here you can see my power wire coming out of that harness. And that's going to go down and feed my camera, my monitor, everything. So I'm not going to get into the actual running of the wires. It's a real pain. It took me forever. You're kind of just going to have to figure it out on your own. But I do want to give you some key information on how I did it. So what we're looking at here is a picture from under the truck, right underneath the rear driver's side seat. Now, I didn't want to drill a hole in my cab. So I climb under the truck and I find this point. and I put my finger on it. It's a hole in the metal, and it's just kind of, it felt like just a piece of tape or something covering that hole from up above. So I poked through that hole with a punch tool. I just poked through the tape, poke right through, and pushed up, and then I had someone on the top side kind of feeling on the carpet to see where the hole punched through. And this is the driver's side rear passenger seat folded up. And for reference point, this bolt right here is the front bolt holding the seat on. And here you can barely see, but that same bolt is right here. So if you go over 8 inches and up about 8 inches, this little piece of black tape, that's where the wires punched through. So now my next job was I need to find a good ground. Now I could have grounded off of the wire for the tail light, but I knew I was going to need a ground up front, and I don't know. There's many ways of going about this, but instead what I decided to do was the jack, of course, is here, and here's a screw holding the jack plate on. So I tested that versus my positive wire that I ran from the rear backup light. I might keep saying tail light, I mean backup light, to my meter, and here I'm getting 12, well, almost 12 volts. So that's a good ground. So this became my ground for the camera, my ground for the monitor. Right here, I just put a lug on the wires and scrunched it under that screw, and then tighten that screw back down. So once I had that, that was pretty much it. So running the wires, I'm going to back up here. Running the wires up through this hole right here was pretty easy. You just kind of, once you get I think I used maybe a 12 gauge solid copper wire and pushed it up through, and then I just taped the stranded wire bundle one at a time and just kept pulling them up through. And for the final install then, of course I put I think I used just a piece of Gorilla Tape to kind of seal back around there. But it wasn't a great seal to begin with. But that's how it came. And of course it at least prevented kept me from having to drill a hole in the cab. So here's the final install. You can see what I had to do. I had to cut the ends off of the camera mount so it wouldn't obstruct my year and month tags. I used little plastic washers under the screws just to keep from having metal on metal for the camera. Oh, by the way, when I cut it, of course, I used some black spray paint and spray painted the ends. But I think this is an aluminum frame, so I don't think it'll rust, but at least it looks good. So I had to use a little file then once I hacksawed it off to get the little shavings off, and then I spray painted it. But it doesn't really look bad. And of course it's not going to come off. It's not really going to slide out, and the year and date, year and month are easily visible. So last thing is, the only problem I had here with the actual camera hardware was there are 2 adjustable screws, and they're located on the bottom side of the camera that allow you to you can see kind of the lines here that allow you to pivot the camera up or down. I went to adjust it, and one of the screws was just kind of jammed in there. I mean, I didn't even break it. It was almost no force at all. I just kind of one turn, and the thing just popped out. So my camera's actually not adjustable. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna turn that into Amazon or see if I can get a replacement or what I'm gonna do. But that was really the only problem I had. Adjusting the lines on the camera, pretty easy. The monitor display is pretty good. There's plenty of other reviews on the internet that go into that, but I just wanted to show installation on the 2010 F150 Super Cab 4x4 XLT. That's it.